Are you someone who tried Genshin Impact during lockdown and maybe got bored of it because there just either wasn't enough to do, or maybe you got level locked? Or maybe you're someone who's just never tried Genshin Impact before in general, and you're wondering, is it worth playing in 2024? Well, luckily for you, I've been playing for the past few years, and I've got a lot of information that can let you know whether it's going to be worth playing in 2024 for you. This goes for if you're a brand new player, or even if you're an existing player and you're just wondering, is it still worth my time? So Genshin Impact came out at the height of lockdown. A lot of people were very bored and they just wanted something to play, so they thought, I'll give it a try, and it had massive success. People had a ton of fun with the game, but a lot of people did quit because, number one, it is a gacha game, and although it has very frequent updates once every 6 weeks, which is about as often as most of you change your sheets, that's still not enough for a lot of people because the updates don't really take very long to complete. However, now we're in 2024, we don't just have one region anymore. We have Mondstadt, Dragonspine, Liyue, the Chasm, Inazuma, Enkonomiya, Sumeru with the rainforest and the desert, Fontaine. There is a ton of content in Genshin Impact now, especially as a brand new player. If you start playing the game today, you're not going to be suffering the level locks that a lot of people suffered when they first started back in 2020. One of the biggest problems back then was you would get XP from completing the main quests, but there wasn't enough main quests or side quests to get to a high enough adventure rank to continue seamlessly. Nowadays, if you start Genshin Impact, you've got a whole open world to explore with a ton of different quests to level up your adventure rank as much as you goddamn want, and there's honestly no level lock requirements at this point. Technically there are, because they do still say you need to be this AR, but honestly for like 90% of the content in the game, as long as you're just playing through the story, you're gonna get through it no problem. There's also not only like a few hours of story in the game at this point, every single patch comes out with banging new story, whether it's world quests that are unvoiced or main Archon quests or story quests that are voiced. And although when the game first started, the Archon quests and story quests were around about an hour long each, nowadays, dude, you're talking like 2-3 hours for the story quests and up to 4-5-6 hours for the Archon quests. Now, don't let that overwhelm you, because nobody's saying you have to complete those on day one or within a set amount of time. My point here is there is a lot of content in the game to keep you occupied, so you can play for much longer durations or over a longer period of time. So there's nothing wrong with taking 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to even do the story if that's all you're interested in. The lore of this game has evolved over time to a point where it's very difficult to keep up with if you don't follow it to a T. But there's a lot of content creators out there such as Minsleaf, Ashikai, and many others that cover the lore of this game, so if you need any recommendations to check that out, definitely go watch those. Now obviously story isn't the main thing in Genshin Impact. There is a lot of different aspects of this video game. Co-op being the next one that I wanted to talk about. You unlock co-op at adventure rank 16, which means you get to play the game with your friends. Or do you? A lot of people have got a lot of very strong opinions on the co-op in this game, me included. I love co-op. I play it almost every time I play Genshin. However, there are some pretty annoying limitations. Number one, you can't really do any quests in co-op, which I personally think is fine. It is a single player story at the end of the day. But when you're just exploring the overworld in co-op, there are some very annoying limitations that you run into, like being unable to interact with certain objects to open up the world, like the statues of the Seven, or even more annoying things like not being able to hand in items to NPCs or turn in daily commissions. It's very irritating. It doesn't feel that seamless. It's still not something that's been addressed or fixed by Hoyoverse themselves, so I don't know if it ever will at this point, but you can leave feedback in the surveys and hope to God that they change it in the future. Other than that though, co-op is fantastic. You can do your daily domains, you can go around and kill enemies for materials, go do bosses together, and it really does give that sense of satisfaction and community building. You can foster a nice community yourself, you can meet new people online in Discord channels, link in the description to mine if you want to meet some very nice people, but I will always say, be very careful on the internet. It's a very dangerous place if you're not careful, but yeah, make some friends, have fun, play co-op, enjoy the game, dude. Now, a lot of you probably quit Genshin Impact after you reach like adventure rank 20, adventure rank 30, because you just didn't really feel a sense of progression. As I was saying, now with the quests and the amount of quests that there is, you're going to be hitting adventure rank 50, 55 very, very quickly, probably within a few months. And that's where the game really begins, in my opinion, for everything outside of the story. The more adventure rank you get, the more ascension you can do with your characters, level them up more. The bosses drop more materials per kill. You get more loot, more rewards from everything. You can get higher rarity equipment such as artifacts, which I don't recommend farming until AR55, by the way. I think the sense of progression in Genshin is a very, very good thing. It is very RNG, so if you're a gamer that loves the grind and getting RNG, which if you don't know what that is, it's random number generator, you get totally random rolls on loot, trying to go for like a god roll, a perfect roll with all the perfect stats and the highest rolls possible, then this game is for you, 100%. You are still limited to the amount of those that you can do daily using the resin system. You get 200 resin hours in a day now instead of the, what was it when Genshin first came out? 120? And it got increased to 160 and now 200. So you can play the game for a bit longer now, and they are making drastic improvements every update to make the game feel better, such as the boss respawn timers not being 4 minutes anymore, it's now 10 seconds. Fantastic. You can play the game at a faster pace and it's more fun. All of these are just little bits as to why I like the game, but I'm going to get into a lot more details soon. Now, if there's any other reason why I love Genshin Impact, it is the music, dude. The music in this game is god tier. It has been since the game came out, but it's just evolved and got better and better and better over time. A lot of the tracks in Genshin have a lot of cultural significance and cultural reflections, and you can hear that with every single track. For example, if you listen to Inazuma music, you know it's Inazuma music. If you listen to Sumeru music, it's got a lot of inspiration from the culture that it represents, and that goes for almost every region in the game, in my opinion. Now, let's quickly move on to the combat, because if you started playing this game during lockdown or you've never played before, this could get quite overwhelming. There is an elemental reaction combat system in this game. You have a ton of different elements. You have Pyro, which, speaking of, it's very hot, so give me a second. So you have Pyro, you have Anemo, you have Hydro, Geo, Dendro, and Cryo, and Electro. Don't forget that. Almost every single one of these elements react differently with each other when you apply them to an enemy. For example, some of them are very straightforward. If you apply Hydro to an enemy and then Cryo, you freeze the enemy. If you apply Hydro to an enemy and then Pyro, you vaporize them. And if they're frozen or affected with Cryo and you apply Pyro, they melt. There's a lot of these reactions that make the gameplay very, very interesting and very, very fun. However, if you're thinking about getting into Genshin Impact for the combat and the end game being difficult, then it might not be the best idea for you, to be honest. They are introducing more endgame as time goes on. We recently just got the Imaginarium Theater, which is honestly really fun in my opinion. It does need some tweaks and updates to be perfect, but everything will on release. But other than that, the only form of endgame we really have is the Spiral Abyss, and it's really not that difficult once you get your teams built up enough. Most of the time. Sometimes we get hit with a random one that's really fucking hard or has really annoying enemies like the stupid fucking snakes that go underground and shit, and it's cucked. But honestly, in my opinion, the combat system in Genshin isn't necessarily wasted, but it has so much more potential than what is currently on offer, and nothing in the game is hard enough for you to really feel like the elemental reaction system is doing anything important. I feel like we need more mechanically difficult content where elemental reactions are necessary. So again, maybe if combat is your main reason for starting the game, it might not be the best idea, but I would recommend trying it out anyway, because at the end of the day, Genshin is a free game with gacha elements. You don't have to spend a penny to play and enjoy this game. But speaking of, let's bring up the gacha system, shall we? Because I see a lot of people talking about this, but not going into too much detail. So this is a gacha game. If you don't know what a gacha game is, you can play the game completely free of charge. You can collect the in-game currency by completing quests and doing achievements and events and things like that to save up for your favorite characters and pull them whenever they get a banner, which usually lasts for a few weeks. Or you can decide to spend money on the game to get that currency early and pull for whatever characters you want. Each character you would only need to pull for once, but you do have the choice to pull for constellations, which is basically they have 6 different upgrade levels if you get the character. Be wary though, even if you pull on the limited character banners, you're not guaranteed to get the character. It is a 50-50. It's a coin flip. So whatever character is on that banner, you can fail that 50-50 and get a random standard banner character. However, you only fail it once and then you are guaranteed. The maximum pity in Genshin is 90. The soft pity is 74 and it increases gradually up until 90. The maximum you're ever going to have to spend to get a guaranteed character, if worst case scenario happens, is 180. The weapon banner is a little different, and honestly, I don't really recommend pulling on the weapon banner unless you're a spender, or unless you've been playing the game for long enough where you have multiple different characters and teams, and you need something to help boost that damage of those teams. For the weapon banner, the soft pity is 65, which means after 65 pulls, you'll gradually get a higher chance of getting the 5-star weapon, and it stops at 80 pity. But this banner is a little bit worse than the character banner. You have what's called fate points, which means you can lose the 50-50, which is actually like a 25-25-50 or 33-33-33 or some weird shit. You can lose the 50-50 twice, which sucks. You could win it the first time, or if you lose the 50-50 once, you gain 1 fate point. If you lose the 50-50 again, you gain a second fate point, which is 2 out of 2. And once you've maxed out those fate points, the next weapon is guaranteed. These do not carry over from banner to banner, so make sure sure you've got enough pulls to go for a guaranteed weapon if you really, really want it. But like I say, dude, you can play this game completely free to play. You're not really going to struggle. You're just going to progress at a much slower pace, which is fine because Genshin Impact also isn't a game that's meant to be played for 6 to 8 hours a day or 4 hours a day or sometimes even 3 hours a day, dude. When the new patch comes out, you're going to be playing quite a bit to complete the story and explore the new areas and things like that. But for the most part, as soon as you've done all the update content, you're going to be playing for maybe 30 minutes a day, just doing your dailies, spending your resin, and then logging off. And that is the design of this gacha game and many other gacha games out there. There's nothing wrong with it. If that doesn't sound like it's for you, then maybe it's not. The character designs in Genshin are absolutely phenomenal and top tier, to be honest. When pulling for characters, you can get 5-star characters, which are the strongest of the strong for the most part. You can also get 4-star characters and weapons. You're guaranteed a 4-star once every 10 pulls. The 4-star characters in this game are incredibly, incredibly strong, and they look awesome too. So don't throw them away or judge them just because they're 4-star. Honestly, some of the 4-stars are necessary in the game, such as Bennett, or almost necessary. And a lot of the 4-star weapons are also very, very good. You look at the Favonius series, and a lot of those weapons are a lot of characters' best in slots. The open world exploration is another thing that I wanted to discuss about the game as well, because when the game first came out, the only areas that were really accessible to explore was Mondstadt, Liyue, and Dragonspine. Right now, there are so many regions to explore. Again, in co-op or by yourself, thousands of chests to get, thousands of puzzles that range anywhere from shooting cubes to change the pattern on them, which are very difficult sometimes, by the way, to anything like going underwater and chasing a fucking glowing jellyfish. So we've already discussed the exploration in Genshin Impact, but since the game came out, there's been a lot of updates to that. Not only do we have really cool areas to explore overworld, but we also have some really cool underground experiences now, such as Enconomia, which is one of my favorite places in the entire game. And in Fontaine, we also get underwater exploration. I'll keep it a buck with you guys. Every time I've had underwater exploration in another game, it hasn't really felt that great, to be honest. I played Subnautica, and God, I fucking hated it. And I know that's a hot take because so many people love it, but I just couldn't get to grips with how the underwater felt. Genshin kind of killed it, dude. The combat's still not great underwater or anything like that, don't get me wrong, but being able to swim through the underwater areas and just hear the beautiful music and it feels so smooth and natural is magical. It's fantastic. I also love some of the characters that have come out recently, especially with the lore implications. Spoiler alert kind of here, but there's some characters that are really, really powerful lore-wise, such as reincarnated dragons and literal gods. I don't want to spoil too much because you'll get to that yourself when you start playing. And then some of the limited time events recently have been absolutely banging. I love the music events where it's basically like Guitar Hero but in Genshin Impact. And there's some really cool combat events that have happened quite recently, so keep your eyes peeled for limited time events. But that does bring me on to the positives and negatives of starting now compared to when the game came out. One of the biggest disadvantages or negatives of starting the game now compared to earlier is the fact that you've missed a lot of limited time events. And that wouldn't be such a big deal if a lot of those limited time events didn't come with really good weapons for free and also really cool character lore. There's a certain character in the game called Albedo, which you don't learn too much about through the main quest, but you learn a lot about from limited time events. And you can't play through those anymore, so the only way to experience those is from other people's perspectives, such as mine on YouTube, which kind of sucks. I wish everybody could experience those events firsthand. Another disadvantage is because the game is so far along now, there is a ton of characters, which means if you really love a certain character and you've got your eyes set on pulling this specific character, you might have to wait a very long time, whether they're 4-star or 5-star. And the other disadvantage is, again, because the game's been out for so long, the story is very complex and you might have a feeling of either being overwhelmed or feeling behind. But I implore you to just not rush. Take your time with it, research what you want to research, just play the game and have fun, and I promise you you'll have a much better time than if you're stressing out about it all. Now, the positive of starting now is the fact that there is a ton of content. You're not going to get bored, at least for a very long time. There is also already very established communities online to help you out, whether it's the guide making community to help you build your characters, a lore community to help teach you about things that you might not already know about the game and you want to get more of an upper hand on knowing, and tons more. So I really do recommend just trying the game out. It's a free-to-play game. You can download it and play it. Even if after the first hour you're just not enjoying it, then maybe the game's just not for you. But what did you lose for trying it? A couple of hours? Now is a better time than ever to get into Genshin, by the way, because a brand new region, Natlan, is coming out in literally like a month. So let me know if you do decide to try it again, and if these bits of tips and advice were any help at all, and if you just have fun with the game. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see any more Genshin content, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.